Shevi'is, olive salad. If one was using a cake of pressed figs and
Stop. We're on Shevi'is Gimel Zion.
Oh, you were starting there. Okay. Oh, this was the Kazara. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. 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 Gimel Zion. Here we are. Stones which the plow turned up or which were covered and are now laid bare. If there are two, each a load for two men, they may be removed. If one clears stones from his field, he may take the top ones, but must leave those that which touch the ground. Likewise, a heap of pebbles or a pile of stones, he may take the top ones, but must leave those which touch the ground. If there is rocky ground or straw underneath them, they may be removed. This reminds me a lot of in Shevi'is when you have a plant in a pot, and if the pot has holes in it or something like that, you can't put it on the ground. You got to,
Mm-hmm.
so that. One may not build steps by the ravines in the sixth year after the rains have ceased, because this would be preparing them for the seventh year. But he may build them in the seventh year after the rains have ceased. However, because this would be preparing them for the eighth year. He may not block them with earth, but he may make an embankment, and any stone that he can take when stretching out his hand may be removed. Shoulder stones may be taken from anywhere, and a contractor may bring them from anywhere. Which are shoulder stones? Any that cannot be taken with one hand. So says Reb Meir. Reb Yossi says, as their name implies, those that are carried two or three on the shoulder. Okay.
Okay. Habonic Gader. So if somebody wants to build a wall between his own property, and the public domain. Okay, mutar lahamik ad hasela. He's allowed to dig dig on that border inside his own property as deep as he wants, because it's obvious that he's doing it for a wall, because people don't typically sow plants right on the edge of their property facing the public domain. However, it says it's mutar lahamik ad hasela. He's allowed to dig as much as he wants over there, and it's not considered work in the field, and nobody's going to be suspicious of him. But if it's between him and his neighbor, that he can't do, because if somebody's looking from the outside, all they're seeing is a guy in a field digging in the field, and that doesn't look good. Okay. So back to our situation where he's digging in the field, he's digging on the border legitimately in the seventh year. But what's he going to do with the sand? If he's got a problem, because if he puts it on his side, it might look like he's doing it for the benefit of the field on the other side. Right. So says Rabbi Yeshua, so he's allowed to pile it up on the Rishus Harabim side, and then afterwards he'll clean it up afterwards. Okay, that says Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Akiva Omer kederech she'ein mekalklin b'shus harabim kach lo yisakenu. He says you cannot cause damage to the Rishus Harabim even temporarily, and you're also not allowed to try and fix stuff in the Rishus Harabim. So, for example, what Rabbi Yeshua was suggesting is that make a pile in the Rishus Harabim, and then afterwards take it and smooth out the Rishus Harabim, fill up the holes. And he says, what? Maybe somebody in the Rishus Harabim wants those holes there. So it's not up to you to decide how to pave the Rishus Harabim. And the halacha is going to follow Rabbi Akiva over here, that he's not allowed to put the stuff into the Rishus Harabim, because that's not his to use for his personal purposes like that. When it's going to inconvenience other people. Okay, so what is he going to do? How is he going to put it into his field? If he puts it out and spreads it out, then it looks like he's fixing up his field in the Shemitah year. So so you make big piles of sand in his own property, just like you would with manure.
Manure, right?
Okay. And the same thing if somebody is digging a borehole, a cistern, anything where he's got a legitimate need to dig that's not for agricultural purposes. He wants to make a pit for storing water, or a canal or something like that.
Right.
That he's again he has to take the sand and make it into piles like you would with manure. Okay, and this is the halacha. All right, Dalet Aleph. Barishona hayu omrim melaket adam eitzim va'avanim v'asavim mitoch shelo kederech shehu melaket mitoch shel chaver. So when a person during the Shemitah year, a person can gather whatever wood's already been cut. Okay, and stones, and if he wants stones for building, and if there are herbs that are uh, that grew by themselves, he's allowed to take these things in the Shemitah. Wait, asavim, hang on, asavim. Just want to make sure I'm saying the right thing about asavim. Um, Gas, Asavim mitzvot sadeo es agas. I think the asavim is yeah. I mean it would be stuff that he's allowed. It must be stuff that he's allowed to gather. So maybe it's things that that he that took root before Shemitah began, and he's allowed to gather them just like anyone else would be allowed to, or he just wants them for straw, to burn or something.
Right.
So all of this is legitimate, and they said originally it's fine that you're allowed to gather it out of your own field, just like you'd be allowed to gather it out of anyone else's field.
Yeah.
However, it's hagas, right? Only the coarse things, right? Not the fine stuff, because then it looks like you're preparing the field, right? The stones, we said he can take the big stones, not the little ones, for construction. Okay. Misherabu over avera. However, unfortunately, people were cheating the system, and they said, "Oh, look, everyone's allowed to gather the big ones, and you'll gather the small ones and say, oh, I didn't realize, or yeah, they're concealing their malfeasance." So they made a takana sheyehei zeh malaket mitoch shel zeh v'zeh malaket mitoch shel zeh. They made this takana that you're not allowed to do it in your own property. You're only allowed to take from other people's property if you want stones like that. And furthermore, shelo b'tova. That, remember, a couple of days ago I was saying, I seem to remember there was something about not doing favors for each other, doing gomlin, right? That I'll clean your field if you'll clean my field, right? And so it must be done not as a favor,
Right.
that's not as a trade-off. And certainly not that you're receiving payment for it, basically. That hey, come and take the field, come and take the rocks out of my field, and I'll give you some free lunch while you're doing it as
Yeah.
well. Uh,
Okay.
right, that means you're basically hiring workers to come and
You're
to
right.
in your field for you. Okay. Sadeshin is kavtsa. Okay, so
It's a bartering kind of thing.
yeah,
So
exactly. Okay, so Mishnah base. Sadesh Niskavtza. So he has a field. Niskavtza is from the root of kotz, which is thorns. So the field was cleared of thorns. Now, the Chazal made a penalty on somebody who worked during Shevi'is to prepare their field for Motzei Shevi'is, and they said if they caught somebody who was doing agricultural work in the seventh year in order to prepare his field for the eighth year, they penalized him and said, we're not going to allow you to farm your field even in the eighth year. So there was that temptation, and they said we've got to make a penalty for this. Okay, now what happens if somebody went and cleared his field of thorns, which is not the same as like plowing his field?
right.
Okay, it's a lesser offense, and says the Mishnah, Tizara b'motzei Shevi'is, no penalty. She nitaiva or she nidaira, one that was nitaira. How do we translate it?
This is one which was improved.
Is improved, but in what way?
Or was used.
Right, he
Or was
plowed it.
used.
He plowed it
Yeah,
in order to remove the thorns, or in Nidaira, or he made his animals walk through the field in order to drop manure all over. Not
right.
and he didn't spread out put the manure into big piles like he was supposed to. Okay, lotizera the motzei Shevi'is. Now that's when the penalty kicks in, because that's a clear and obvious thing where a guy was working his field in the Shemitah year, even though it was just to prepare it for the eighth year. Sadesh in Itaiva, what about this field that was improved? Beis Shammai omrim ein ochlin peroseha b'Shvi'is. You're not even allowed to eat its fruit during Shevi'is. Beis Hillel omrim ochlin. No, you don't penalize the current field. So let's say it's an orchard, right? And a guy was caught red-handed going and plowing through the orchard during the Shemitah year. And Beis Shammai say, okay, so that's the penalty is on everyone that you're not allowed to eat that fruit. And Beis Hillel say, no, he can't. That fruit is hefker and it belongs to everyone. Okay,
including including the owner,
him or
including the owner. As Hill says, everyone can eat from it.
yeah, I guess so because the fruit is hefker. It's not. It
Right.
belongs to nobody, and therefore, I don't see that they had any specific penalty on the owner that now he's not allowed to eat the Shemitah fruit. Beis Shammai
Okay.
ein ochlin per Shvi'is b'tova. Beis Shammai say you are not allowed to acknowledge the owner of the field when you're taking the Shemitah fruits. So you can't. So because if you were to go in to his, let's say he's got an orchard and he's got some nice oranges there, and you walk in to take the oranges, which you're allowed to do, and say to the owner, "Thank you very much for your oranges." Because that is like a tacit admission that he actually owns the oranges, and he doesn't. The oranges are free for everyone, and you're not allowed to show gratitude to the owner for it because for that. Okay. Beis Hillel omrim ochlin b'tova v'shelo b'tova. It's fine. You're allowed to say thank you, and perhaps because in previous years he's tended to the trees and made them in a situation where they were able to grow nice fruits. So even though the fruits themselves are hefker, it's kind of an agav thank you for all the work that he's done before now. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer chiluf hadvarim. No, it's actually the other way around. Zumi kole Beis Shammai mechumrei Beis Hillel. This is one of the areas, and we'll see that in Maseches Eidos. There's a Mishnah that there's a whole parak in Eidos, if you recall, of the areas where Beis Hillel is machmir and Beis Shammai is mekel, because that's the rarity. So they mention all these specific cases, and there's one Mishnah where just Rabbi Yehuda comes and says. Beis Hillel say that you're not allowed to eat b'tova, and Beis Shammai say ochlim b'tova v'shelo b'tova.
Okay.
Okay.
Gimel? That's yours, right?
Shevi'is Aleph Daled.
We had three. You had three. You did 10.
Yeah, I did 3. Yeah.
I skipped the page. Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. Okay.
Worries?
Okay. It's over here. Here we go. Aleph Daled. If one was yielding a cake of pressed figs and 2 were not yielding, or if 2 were yielding and 1 was not yielding, one may only plow according to the requirements. If they are from 3 to 9, if there are 10 or more than 10, then whether they yield or not, the entire Beit Shah may be plowed for the sake, as it is written, in plowing and in harvest you shall rest. Since it is not necessary to stay plowing and harvesting in the 7th year, it refers to plowing and harvesting in the year preceding, which enters into the 7th year, and to harvesting at the end of the 7th year was extended to the year after the 7th year. Rabbi Yishmael says, just as plowing is optional, so is harvesting optional, which excludes the harvesting of the Omer. These 3 trees, which belong to 3 people combined, and one may plow the entire Beit Sof for their sake. And what space must be left between them? Rabbi Gamil says, for oxen to pass through with their implements. If 10 saplings are spread out over a Beit Sof, the entire Beit Sof may be plowed for their sake until Rosh Hashanah. If they are planted in a row and surrounded by a fence, it is permitted to plow only as much as they require. Okay. Check here.
Okay, come on.
Okay. Yud Aleph. If one sold produce in Syria and said they are from Eretz Israel, he must tithe it. They are tight, he is believed, because the mouth that forbade is the mouth that permitted. They are from mine, he must tight. They are tight, and he must maybe believe, because the mouth that forbade is the mouth that permitted, and if it was known that he possessed a field in Syria, he must tight. If an Amar said to an Akav, buy for me a bundle of vegetables, buy for me a loaf, he buys it without specifying and is exempt. If he said, this is for me and this is for my fellow, and they became mixed up, he must tithe even if they are 100. If one invites his friend to eat with him and he does not trust him in regard to heights, he declares before the Sabbath, what shall I separate tomorrow? What shall be Meiser's? And adjoining it is the rest of the Meiser, that which I rendered Meiser is rendered Truma Meiser for it, and Meiser Sheni lies in the north and the south of it and is redeemed with money. Okay. Zavim. Okay. Base. We examine a Zav in 7 ways before he is confirmed Tameh as a Zav: for food, for drink, for carrying a load, for jumping, for illness, for sight, and for thought, regardless of whether he thought before he saw or he saw before he thought. And Yehuda says, even if he saw a pair of domesticated animals, wild animals or fowl engage in relations with each other, and even if he saw a woman's colorful garments. Rabbi Akiva says, even if he ate any food, whether bad or good, or drank any drink. They said to Rabbi Akiva, if so, they will never be Zabim from now on. And Rabbi Akiva said to them, you are not responsible for Zabim. Once he is confirmed as a Zav, we do not examine him. And a confirmed Zav's mishap and his doubt in his semen are Tameh, because the matter has legs to stand on. After, I'm sorry? Did I do something wrong?
Sorry, I lost focus there for a second, and
I did base,
and I don't know where you are.
I did base, and now I'm on. I didn't finish base yet. I have to finish it.
Yeah, okay.
Right, after
fine. Yes, right. You're still in base. Great. Okay.
After he had one mission, we examine him, and after the second mission, we examine him. But after the third mission, we do not examine him. And Reb Eliezer says, after the third mission, we examine him on account of the offering. Like Gimel. Someone who has a seminal mission does not become tummy through a Zav mission for the following 24 hours. Reb Yossi says only that day. Regarding a non-Jew who has a seminal mission and then converted, he can immediately become tummy through a Zav mission. Regarding a woman who has a large discharge of blood and a woman who has a difficult labor, a 24-hour period, and regarding the day or of 2 days for someone who strikes a slave, it is a 24-hour period. Regarding a dog which ate flesh of a corpse, for 3 24-hour periods, the flesh is in its natural state. Dalet. A Zav contaminates a couch in 1 of 5 ways, rendering the couch able to contaminate a man to contaminate his clothing by the Zav standing on it, sitting on it, lying on it, hanging on it, or leaning on it. The contaminated couch of a Zav contaminates a man in 1 of 7 ways, to the degree that a man will further contaminate his clothing by the man standing on it, sitting on it, lying on it, hanging on it, leaning on it, and through contact and through carrying. Okay. All right. We are on to Caleb. Okay. Zion. There are 3 Pinkases. And Afikorin is susceptible to becoming Tameh with Midrash Tuma. A Pinkas is a receptacle for wax, is susceptible to becoming Tameh with corpse Tuma. And a smooth Pinkas is tower from any form of Tuma. There are 3 beds. A bed that is designed for lying on is susceptible to becoming Tameh with Midrash Tuma. A bed of glassware manufacturers is susceptible to becoming Tameh with corpse Tuma. And the bed of net makers is tower from any form of Tuma. There are 3 mashpalis containers. A mashpalis container from a Nor is susceptible to becoming Tameh with Midrash Tuma. 1 used for storage is susceptible to becoming Tameh with corpse Tuma. And a puklat of camels is tower from any form of Tuma. Okay. And we are on to Rosh Hashanah.
Shavuos.
Excuse me?
We're on Shavuos.
Did I put that away?
New one. We finished Makos yesterday, so we're starting Shavuos today.
Sorry.
No worries.
I remember saying that yesterday. Olive. Both are of 2 types, which are in reality 4. Awareness of Tuma is of 2 types, which are in reality 4. And transfers on the Sabbath are of 2 types, which are in reality 4. Appearances of the Tzar's fiction are of 2 types, which are in reality 4. Whenever there is awareness in the beginning and awareness at the end and unawareness in between, he is liable to a variable sin offering. If there was awareness in the beginning, but there was no awareness at the end, the he-goat which he sacrificed inside and the Yom Kippur still suspends his punishment until he becomes aware of it and brings a variable sin offering. If there was no awareness in the beginning, but there was awareness at the end, the he-goat which he sacrificed outside of Yom Kippur atone, and it is said, aside from the sin offering of the atonements, for what does this one atones? This one atones just as the inner one atones only for a case in which there was awareness, so the outer one atones only for a case in which there was unawareness.
Okay. And Rosh Hashanah.
Sorry about that. I don't remember saying. Okay. Okay, Rosh Hashanah. Okay, Aleph Dalet. For 2 months, the witnesses may desecrate the Sabbath, for Nisan and for Tishrei. For on them the messengers go forth to Syria, and on them they fix the holy days. And when the temple was in existence, they desecrated even for all of them because of the termination of the time of the sacrifice. Whether the new moon was clearly visible or whether it was not clearly visible, they should desecrate the Sabbath because of it. Yossi says if it was clearly visible, they should not desecrate the Sabbath because of it. It happened that more than 40 pairs of witnesses passed on their way to Bezdin, and Red Kiva detained them in Lod. Then Gamaliel said to him the following message: if you detain the public, you are placing a stumbling block in their path for the future.
Okay, and that is it.
Okay, that's it. By the way,
Right.
Dan today